From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome back to the CyberHub Podcast. It's Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. I hope everyone had a meaningful Memorial Day, and you did get to spend some time thinking about the brave men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifices and their families that still carry the burden of that loss to this very day. If you've, all of us go through life, and loss is an inevitable part of life. But those who've gone through loss understand that you carry loss with you all the time. It never goes away. It's not just one day a year. And so while we take this weekend to remember those families, just remember that they carry the burden of that loss every single day of their lives for as long as they walk this planet. Some days are easier, some days are harder, but nonetheless, they still are carrying that burden. A packed show this morning. We're going to get right into it here. Join me for a coffee cup cheers. And Miss Warstall, thank you so much for being here this morning. Coffee cup cheers. For those wondering what I got in my espresso cup, it's a elite Colombian blend that I got from Israel 2 months ago. And so absolutely delicious. Like, I've savored some of those capsules from an espresso machine because I've got different types of coffee machines, but this was the second to last. So one more of those espressos. So I may sip this again during today's show. So here we go. Let's get started with the FBI cautioning U.S. law firms that they're becoming a frequent target of the silent ransom group extortion gang. The gang's also known as Chatty Spider, or the 732,000 names we come up with. But here's their attack vector. They rely on callback phishing emails as their initial attack vector. They impersonate well-known businesses. SRJ's phishing emails claim to charge small amounts of subscription fees and then instruct victims to call the attacker to perpetually cancel the fake subscription. Very similar to like the India call center scam, where you kind of get an email from Norton saying, we're about to charge you $300, or Amazon, or whatever the case may be. And then they're perpetrating fraud. And then they allegedly we transferred you 30,000. Oh my God. You need to pay me back. If you haven't seen those videos, there's a whole bunch of them out there that you can watch. According to the fresh FBI alert, the extortion group changed its tactics 2 months ago and switching to phone calls as the initial attack vector. As of March of 2025, SRG was observed changing their tactics to calling individuals and posing as an employee from their company's IT department. SRG will then direct the employee to join a remote access session, either through an email sent to them or navigating to a web page. Once they gain access to those targeted devices, the group tells the victims that work needs to be done overnight and then proceeds to escalate privileges and exfiltrate data of interest. And again, they're targeting law firms, which could have sensitive legal documents there, which they can then in turn use for ransom. So obviously, I mean, how do you protect against something like this? So one of the things I always recommend whenever you're dealing with IT, and especially in the work environment we are today, fully remote. So when you get a phone call on Teams or on your phone from someone claiming to be from IT, you're likely not checking the org chart. You're likely not checking with IT whether that person is there. So one thing I recommend, just a few stopgaps, and these are work process things that help really eliminate the threat. If you get a phone call from IT, they should be able to identify by their employee number, which you should check in the org chart. Or you should be able to text like a Teams or Slack channel that has IT in it and say, I'm getting a call from someone by the name of Bruce in IT. Is there a Bruce in IT? Little things go a long way. Little things go a very, very long way. And finally, monitoring the devices for RDP. That's unbelievable. Monitor the devices for RDP. No one should be able to uninstall anything you're doing in terms of your EDR, MDR, XDR, unless they're an admin and you give them that permission, but you should be able to trace those as well. So there's that. Oh, wow. We went off alignment even though we weren't a second ago. All right. So, German sportswear giant Adidas is disclosing a data breach after attackers attacked a customer service provider and stole some customer data. They're not saying who the company is, they're not saying what data was taken. They're just notifying to the fact that a third party provider had some data stolen. What that data is and how will it, what will come of it is still unknown. Bringing this to your attention because you can obviously tell that earlier this month, Adidas did disclose data breaches that impacted customers in Turkey and South Korea who contacted the company's customer service center in 2024 or earlier. Then the breached information included names, email addresses, phone numbers, birth dates, and addresses. Again, excluding dates of birth, is anything there still PII? Is your name, email address, and phone number not public information at this point? Many people, if you go on LinkedIn and you look at customer info, you have all that information readily available. So what makes this PII? I get social security numbers, I get financial information, and I get dates of birth. But all the other information, just an overdue there, just a significant overdue. All right. So sorry, we are a bit off alignment here. We checked it right before the show. That wasn't the case. So yesterday we talked about Nova Scotia Power, and they had reported that essentially the attackers stole everything, financial information, all the customer information, everything. And apparently, in a local story on CTV, Canadian TV, a Nova Scotia couple says they were devastated after losing $30,000 from their bank account, which they believe is tied directly to the Nova Scotia Power recent cybersecurity breach. Now, here's the thing about this. It's hard to prove. They're really going to have to prove that Nova Scotia Power was behind it. And chances are, the way they've set up ACH and financial information isn't just with Nova Scotia Power, but they've done it with many other potential vendors. So could their data have been compromised there? Now, there's not a way to positively prove it happened because of Nova Scotia Power, but there's no way to not prove that it didn't happen because of Nova Scotia Power. So you see kind of the dilemma here. Legal precedent in lieu, where's the ambulance chaser suing Nova Scotia Power? They will be arriving soon. So apparently someone called their bank and transferred $30,000 from their line of credit. They said they've never been in debt. Good for them. And now they suddenly owe $30,000. It wasn't their mistakes. The couple with the last name of Betts said they called Manulife, their financial services firm, where a representative told them the account had been accessed by someone a day before, claiming to be Diane, with all of her information in hand, meaning they were able to validate everything. The only way they could have convinced the customer service agent that they were me, or if they had everything she said in the interview, is if they started asking how anyone got this kind of access. She said after receiving the notification from Nova Scotia Power, they say all the dots connected. The couple who've held an account with the utility for over 50 years said they've never imagined such sensitive data was still stored, let alone vulnerable. And again, this goes to the discussion I did yesterday on the show around Nova Scotia Power. Why wasn't the data segmented? Why was it all just in one spot, so easy for the attackers to find? That remains there. This couple's now out $30,000. So we'll see if Nova Scotia Power or their bank reimburses them, or if the police will do anything about this crime. So a story for your attention and almost immediate impact, right? I mean, 4 days. 4 days. The attackers test the water, right? I just happened to land on this story in the morning. You probably won't find it anywhere else. All right. The 3 a.m. ransomware group is conducting a highly targeted attack using email bombing and spoofed IT support calls to socially engineer employees into given credentials for remote access to corporate systems. And again, very similar to what we saw from the silent ransom group, right? Same exact thing. This now works, right? So it used to be email phishing, click the links. We've trained our way out of it that the effective rate no longer works. But when you have a voice on the phone, the established trust there is unbelievable. And the attackers will always play into trust. Wherever there's over trust, that's an opportunity for threat actors to take advantage of. And that's exactly what this group is doing. This attack follows stuff like Black Basta and some of the other ones. The 3 a.m. ransomware attack targeting a Sophos client occurred in the first quarter of this year, used a similar approach, but with a twist, a real phone call phishing instead of Microsoft Teams. The attackers then convinced the employee to open Microsoft Quick Assist and grant remote access. The attackers then downloaded and extracted a malicious archive from a spoof domain containing a VPS script, a chemo emulator, and a Windows 7 image preloaded with QDOR backdoor. This was used to evade detection by routing traffic through virtual machines created on the platform, which allowed persistent yet undetected access to the network. Visibility. And you can obviously see here the attack timeline. According to Sophos, you'll find that all on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. Let's get into Russia. 3 stories around Russian cyber activity today. A previously unknown Russian-backed cyber espionage group known as Laundry Bear, and we've got 2 stories about these guys, are now being linked to the 2024 Dutch police security breach, as the Dutch National Police revealing last year the attackers stole work-related contact information of multiple officers, names, email addresses, phone numbers, and even in some cases private details. The Netherlands General Intelligence and Security Service and the Netherlands Defense Intelligence and Security Service linked Laundry Bear to this breach in a joint advisory issued on Tuesday, warning it's highly probable that these Russian attackers also breached other Dutch organizations. The advisory explains that Laundry Bear accessed a Dutch police employee account in September of 2024 and stole work-related information through the global address list, so they didn't really steal emails or anything else, but rather them as well. But who these guys are is Void Blizzard, and we'll get to this story here by friends over at the Hacker News. Void Blizzard is being attributed to a worldwide cloud abuse. Since at least April of last year, the group is linked to espionage operations, mainly targeting organizations that seem to be important to Russian government objectives, including those in government, defense, transportation, media, and NGOs, as well as healthcare sectors in Europe and North America, primarily those supporting the Ukraine. They often use stolen sign-in details that they likely buy from online marketplaces to gain access to organizations. Once inside, they steal large amounts of emails and files, according to the Microsoft Threat Intel team. Attacks mounted by Void Blizzard have been found to disproportionately single out NATO member states and Ukraine, suggesting they're trying to collect intelligence to further Russian strategic objectives. This includes the October 2024 compromise of several user accounts belonging to Ukrainian aviation organizations that were previously targeted by Seashell Blizzard, a threat actor tied to the GRU. So all in all, you're seeing them really just kind of honing in on intel operations. And by the way, Russia not coming to the table, everything else going on between Russia and the Ukraine just shows you the intensity of these cyber attacks. And the more they spread them out, like I said, wiper malware was a thing in 2022 that was used exclusively on Ukrainian national interest. There's now wiper malware in the NPM and PyPy libraries that are being used to wipe organizations. You have to understand these threats from the battlefield, from the warfield, make it to our boardrooms really, really fast. Stuxnet was the mother of all malware. Once that became public by the Iranians, it became the mother of WannaCry, NotPetya, and so much more modern ransomware. So understand that this evolution isn't new. It's a wash, rinse, repeat type of activity. But that's not all. The Russian hacking group called Killnet, once known for its noisy pro-Kremlin cyber attacks, has been silent for some months, but it's now coming back, as earlier this month it claimed that it attacked and hacked the Ukrainian drone tracking system, providing geolocation data that allegedly helped Russian forces destroy several radar stations. The claim, alongside unverified footage and maps, was heavily promoted by Russian media, but remains unconfirmed by independent analysts. And again, Russia uses everything as part of a greater control sphere. So why is Killnet all of a sudden back alive? Is it part of the negotiations for the ceasefire and the end of the war between Russia and Ukraine? And is this being used as a leverage as part of those negotiations? Everyone knows the Russians' unique style of negotiating. They're amassing a lot of leverage in their negotiations with the U.S., with the Ukrainians, in order to submit. And they're quite frankly having a lot of success doing that in the cyber realm for a lot of obvious reasons. CISA is now warning about the Commvault clients that should be aware that their clients are being targeted as part of a campaign targeting cloud applications. Commvault, a New Jersey-based company, said it was notified by Microsoft in February of a data breach caused by an unnamed nation-state threat actor that allowed access to a subset of app credentials that certain Commvault customers used to authenticate their Microsoft 365 environments. CISA on Thursday of last week said they're monitoring cyber threat activity targeting their applications hosted in their Microsoft Azure cloud environment. CISA believes this is part of a larger campaign targeting various SaaS companies' cloud applications with default configurations and elevated permissions. CISA said the threat actor likely accessed client secrets for Commvault's Metallic and Microsoft 365 backup SaaS solution hosted in Azure. In multiple blogs through March, April, and May, Commvault explains that the breach affected a small number of customers and that the company has in common with Microsoft. And again, kind of very SolarWindish like, right? Very, very SolarWindish like. Specific targeting. This is either going to fall on Russia or China. One of the two there. And finally, in acquisition news, Check Point announcing this morning that they have acquired, I believe it is Verity Cybersecurity, which is a preemptive exposure management platform. So the deal is expected to close by the end of Q2, which is July. So another move there by Check Point and their new CEO, Nadav Tzafrir, emphasizing the importance of preemptive cybersecurity in the current AI-driven landscape, noting that Verity's technology aligns with Check Point's prevention-first strategy. So another acquisition as the market continues to consolidate and the giants continue to add more and more tools to their repertoire for a best-in-platform type of solution rather than best-in-class, which is what we're seeing a lot of transitions to. If you're not part of that transition, you're going to find yourself out of business, is my guess. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern live with all the latest and greatest. Until then, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to check out cyberhubpodcast.com for all of the latest news and exclusive content only available there. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.